Call this meeting of the Londonderry, New Hampshire Heritage Commission to order this 26th day of May 2022. First order of business is approval of the minutes from our prior meeting. I went over them briefly. I didn't see anything that needed to be added. Did any other commissioners have anything to add to the minutes? Any corrections?
I think John has got it all, so if there are none, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the meeting
Okay.
of March
And seconded by
24th,
Mr.
2022.
Colblazer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Minutes approved. So we'll move right into the design formal review applications, beginning with a few continuations from our March meeting. First being an application for design review of a site plan for the construction of a 7,200 square foot warehouse and wholesale building with exterior racking and associated site improvements at 3 Enterprise Drive, map 15, lot 62-3, 3 Enterprise Drive LLC, owner and applicant.
So, good evening. My name's Jason Lopez, Keach Nordstrom Associates. With me tonight is Paul Carey, representative from 3 Enterprise Drive LLC and Northeast Nursery. Again, we were here the last meeting, like 2 months ago. I did provide a handout. All of you got the handout left on the table for you. So the front cover, this property is Enterprise Drive off Rockingham Road. Little ways down from Sims Drive. The Dunkin' Donuts is almost across the street from Enterprise Drive. Donovan Springs is down the end of the road. So last month, we talked about the site layout. There was a lot of questions on racking. We took a look at the building. The commission agreed with the renderings for the building. Those are the last two sheets in your handout, if you want to flip to that. And so you recall the building that was discussed. Two items that the commission was looking for was lighting and landscaping. Have provided a lighting plan in this packet and landscape plan. Also, there was questions on the racking. We have a photo, manufacturer photo of what the racking is going to look like. What's in the photo is a lot higher. They don't need the exterior racking to be that tall. It's only going to be about 3 levels high. Big change with the racking is going through the design review process. There was a question on the zoning and the placement of the racking in the easterly portion of the site. So at this time, we've removed all racking from that easterly portion. The only racking, exterior racking, will be to the rear of the building. We'll take a look at in the future at coming back after we make some adjustments to the site, potentially some zoning items. Come back in the future and present racking at a later date for that area if in fact they end up needing all that.
When you say rear, that's to the west
Yes.
side of the building, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We also did make a note about a signage plan being needed before the sign can be placed.
They're not
doing
going
the
to have a
sign
sign. The sign is going to be what's on the face of the building, and that's shown in the rendering.
I'm sorry, Jason, the racking will not be visible from the street now? Because it'll be tucked down?
Behind the building, yeah.
Just behind the building, but you won't, as a drive-by, not particularly notice it?
No.
Okay.
If you go to the second sheet in that handout, the landscape plan, you'll see on the westerly side of the building, northwesterly side, there's going to be a lot of vegetation retained there due to the wetland buffer. And then, coming down Enterprise Drive when you're entering, you just can't really see around the corner there. We did have a conversation with engineering about landscaping and placement on the front. We do have a sewer easement and site visibility easement. We were looking to propose some landscaping behind the visibility sightline. They did not want any vegetation planted in the easement at all. So we have relocated a lot of that landscaping we had just off the edge of the loading dock to try to help provide a little more vegetative buffer for that.
I'm sorry, what is the easement in the front of the building?
We have a sewer easement. All these properties are connected to sewer force main that pump up to the easterly corner of our property. So there's a sewer easement, and then there's a site distance easement looking to the right that crosses over that whole front portion of the property.
Yeah. Real quick before we continue, I'd like to appoint Laura, sorry, Laura.
Oh, Shankman?
Shankman, right. Laura Shankman to vote in the place of Sue Judry, who's not here tonight. I think, based on the notes that we have from the March meeting, that you've addressed everything we asked for. The racking canopies to be a subtle color, it's kind of irrelevant if they're behind the building.
Yeah, they're still going to match the building color, the company color,
Okay.
as close as the manufacturer has as a match.
And you've provided lighting plan and landscaping. Lighting looks to be dark sky compliant, it's all downcast. And all LED, correct?
Correct.
The landscaping looks good. I see you added some lilacs in there.
Yep.
Very nice.
This is the season.
Any questions or concerns from commissioners?
You know, they show lighting in the plantings, but I don't see any lighting profiles or anything on their lighting draft or plan. So you look at the picture, and they show the plants being illuminated, but on their sheet, whatever this sheet is, the lighting plan, I don't see any fixtures there on the ground. And in the rendering, well, it looks like they're shining up, perhaps. which
Oh,
is
you
something
ta-
we're
oh,
trying to
the-
avoid. Pardon me?
Yeah, the architect's rendering, that was done prior to really us even having the site layout. You'll see that the loading dock configuration isn't quite right. That loading dock is actually pushed further back on the building a little bit. And I'll say the people that put the rendering together took some liberties on some of the presentation.
Yeah, there are more fixtures on the side of the building that are on, than there are on the plan.
Correct. Our lighting designer laid out what proper coverage would be. The architect, like I said, took some liberties on.
So there's no lighting within the plantings?
I'm
Well, we didn't have anything to do with the drawing, but I mean, we sell those lights to residential neighborhood, so maybe someday, I don't know, we don't plan on putting them in.
Well, I was only concerned about their
I
uplighting.
know, we like the dark sky, we have all kinds of dark sky products.
Okay, so,
No, that was well before, and, because he knows we sell those products, he was probably trying to show off our,
oh, so you will have some installed? Yes?
no, not right away.
Oh, not right away.
Well, it's an option someday, we don't know.
Okay.
I mean, who knows, you know? But
Well,
it'll all
I
be,
think we'd like to know. You
Okay, the answer
need
is
it for
no.
the site plan.
we're not gonna have
It's
it,
gonna,
we won't have it, if that's the rule, we won't have it.
Okay.
We, like I stated, we're gonna probably be revisiting the idea of the racking out front. There was a zoning item on that. So once they get in, settled into the building, they start looking at the site and, their products and how they want to, do displays. If we come before the boards again, with a revised plan showing more racking out there, obviously, any modifications they wanted to do to the site, that would be the time to capture that and present that under an amended site plan.
So for now, the site plan,
Site-
the lighting is strictly what's in the lighting plan?
Correct.
Okay.
And so the light planning, in the drawing, the renderings show lighting on the sign, which gooseneck down. Is that correct?
The designer just had the one over the face of the building.
Kind of
So-
at the peak of the
No.
roof.
Yeah, it was a mountain height, about 20 feet, I believe it was.
Yeah, it looks like it's up there.
So you're not going to
15
have
feet.
any lighting for your sign?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Because I'm just asking, because the drawing shows 4 goosenecks, which is something we like if you're going to do, but if you're not going to do it, it's fine. Thank you.
I think it looks fine the way it is. There are no other questions or concerns?
no, I think it looks,
No?
it looks pretty good, because whatever gets on the site plan is what you're gonna live with, unless you wanna come back to amend the site plan. and then it-
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to mark down approved as submitted. I am going to make a note again, just that in the future, if you guys ever do a sign or anything, you have to come back for a signage plan or to change your lighting.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Jason, hang in for a second. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
may I?
Absolutely.
Back in September, Jason, you talked to us, unrelated matter, about the stone wall at Lorden Common.
Oh, yes.
Can you
Yep.
give us an update on that?
Yeah, Laura reached out to me the other day. I reached out to Chimberg. The gentleman that I was dealing with has since retired, but his replacement, dealing with Maria, were over there. So they had, I guess they had a meeting today out there to get the landscape company out there. They don't have a hard date set yet, but they said sometime in June. They just got to set the schedule. So I did forward the email communication that I was going back and forth with Chimberg to Laura, so she has that in the files. So sometime next month, that wall on the other side, I think it's lot 60.
Lot 60.
Yeah,
Lot 60.
okay. That should be installed within, say, the next month.
Okay, so, because we like to deal with dates certain here, we could be safe to say by the end of June, the wall will be up?
That's what I'm told, yes. Now, that's fine. We will have to go through a full as-built on that whole road, and that will be shown on the as-built before road acceptance. So there is another hard gotcha. You know, if there's a further delay on that, you know, road won't be accepted until it complies with the approved plan. So, but yes, what I'm told is that the next month that wall should be in.
Okay, so if I could propose, Mr. Chairman, maybe if we're not done with that wall by our next meeting, which would be in July, I think, right? Maybe we could have you come back and explain.
Yeah, I will, give me a heads up and I'll ask a representative from their company to come.
Yeah, I think actually when we had discussed this before, that July was what we had talked about too.
Actually,
so-
May
It was May? It was May,
Yeah,
okay.
May 1st.
I,
Sounds like
honestly, I don't recall.
I have.
A few months ago now.
Yeah,
So, okay, so the understanding is we're going to try to get this done in July, but certainly if it's not done by our next meeting.
June, yes.
By June, I'm
Yep.
sorry. By the end of June, and if it's not done, you'll send someone back in to talk to us.
Correct.
What could work for you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next application is for design review of a site plan for the construction of two one-story buildings, 24,800 square feet and 25,800 square feet respectively, for a warehouse and storage facility and associated site improvements at 88A Harvey Road, map 14, lot 17, Patriot Holdings LLC applicant and VAB Properties LLC owner. Also continued from the March meeting.
Chris, the applicant for this project reached out to me and has put a pause on the project. They're thinking about resubmitting something completely different. So we're just going to table this for now.
Okay, moving along. Next application for design review of a conditional use permit per Londonderry zoning ordinance section 6.3.11.c and use table 4.1.2 to allow a 6,000 square foot convenience store with drive-through and gas station with 16 fueling stations and 2 diesel fueling stations on the Route 28 Performance Overlay District, Route 28, 174 Rockingham Road, map 15, lot 61, and 178 Rockingham Road, map 15, lot 61. Route 28 POD, 2V Londonderry LLC and 2V Londonderry West LLC owners and New Sunset Realty applicant. Continued from March meeting. Thank you.
Hey, good chef. You? Geez, I like the gas prices.
Yeah.
That's per liter.
If you bring us these gas prices, we'll approve it.
Good evening, Jeff Cavan with TF Moran's office.
Tom Healy with Nuria Energy.
And John Sully with Phase Zero Design.
So I think the primary discussion previously was to look at the architecture. I think we talked about landscaping, lighting, the site. We had discussed adding a little bit of island in front of the diesel end of the pumps, but we focused on the architecture here. If you're looking at it, you're really looking at the angle as if you're in the intersection of Rockingham Road and Sims Drive. This is what you'd see from that corner. So added peak shingled roof, clapboard type siding in the front, brick base along the side and up the end corners of the building. Soften some of the colors. I think one of the comments was the canopy itself. So there's a kind of a peaked roof.
Yep.
Added a couple of dormer type windows on the front of the building. So to me, they've come a long way towards some of your suggestions. If you look at the second page, again, that would be this store facing Sims Drive. okay, the front door, with the little patio area off to the side that would be more towards Rockingham Road. So there are a couple other views. If you go to the fifth page in, it shows you a breakdown or sampling of materials and color palette. So you can see the brick base that would run along the bottom and up the side of the building there, the shingle roof that would be proposed, the clapboard type siding that would be across the front of the building, and then the darker color at the front door. The last page, one of the things that was asked was, could we show, a night view of the gas station? And then, as you go through the balance of the packet, there's some elevation views, floor plan, and they do show the signage on the building. And the signage on the canopy that would be proposed. And then on the last page, there's the freestanding sign, the food service. I don't know if has that been pinpointed, or is this just a sample at this time?
It's not definite, but
Okay.
it's a good chance it would be a Motto's.
Okay. So I think we'll turn it over to you, and you can, we'd love to hear your comments.
Sure. So notes from last meeting was signage plan needed for approval of signs. It looks like you guys don't have any signs outside of what's actually on the building itself, correct?
You can see on the front cover, the freestanding sign that's proposed. And the dimensions and what have you are on that last page. And this is, as far as height, size, is consistent with what was previously approved. And you can see the signage that they've shown as far as the canopy and on the front door, or over the front door of the building. Do you have copies of the site plan, if any of you need that?
On the freestanding sign, it says, structure by sign fabricator. What does that mean?
The foundation base that's, in the ground.
Right, but what does it mean as far as what the material is?
What material?
And colors?
You're talking about the foundation that's below grade.
Right.
You won't see it's concrete.
Yes, but on this drawing,
Yeah.
if you look below the tenant signage, why there is a notation,
There's a
structure
note
by
on the,
sign fabricator.
I can address it, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't see,
That note refers to the steel tube columns that would be the support for the signage.
okay, so it's gonna be steel tubes painted
Steel tubes painted a gloss white color.
gloss white, okay.
As shown on that first sheet.
Yes. That's fine, but it doesn't tell me what it was from
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
from the rendering.
I didn't understand your question.
That's
Sorry.
okay. And then the internally illuminated push-through logo. So on that same sign,
the logo letters, and one of those semicircles will be illuminated from the inside.
Correct.
And your letters on the sign, in this particular one, 228, that's going to be a black background and white letters. I mean, white translucent portions.
They're illuminated as well.
Yeah, so if you're looking at that,
So that's going to be individual, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't go to a dark one.
yeah, if you look at the night view, which is, I think, the sixth sheet, I think that kind of,
Okay, so somebody's going to be out there with a stick and a pole and putting letters up, right?
No, sir, we'd be proposing to do the LED fonts. So those would be LED modules, so that you can remotely change those. We've gotten away from the old style placards that would fall on the attendant's head when they're trying to change them. I know that Londonderry recently had a change in the ordinance that would allow for the LED pricing modules at service stations. I know we recently retrofitted one of our sites. And if I could just explain the remainder of the sign, all of that white surrounding material is all opaque. So at night, this is a good representation of really, truly what's illuminated. The only thing I will point out is that the product names that are next to the prices, the blue lettering, that will also be illuminated, so you can read that at night. As well as the wording down below where it says tenant signage.
Okay, thank you.
Is the Amato sign, that lighted at all, or is that just a sign that's there on the building?
In our standard installations, that is typically internally illuminated.
Okay.
We'd have some flexibility with that.
Chris, can I just make a couple of comments?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Jeff, I think for the performance overlay district, you need a monument-type sign pursuant to 4667,
okay,
and that would be for the freestanding sign, which, what is proposed right now, that is not a free monument sign. And you do have excess signage, a lot of it, like on the back and front of the building. So you may need some relief from some of the signage that you're proposing. Is in excess of what's allowed?
okay. Yeah, right now, we want to basically let the commission know, what we were targeting.
Right, but I think
Signage.
the commission needs to know that that's in excess of what's allowed by our regulations.
Yeah, I think last time when we came in, we basically just extended, like a brick base or something like that below that piece of sign, so it was a monument sign.
Yes.
Versus the steel tube.
The height and the overall area was based upon the previously approved
Yep.
sign.
So
We could certainly
Well, yeah.
decorate,
Yeah,
do some
we-
type of
base across
base
the
that,
bottom. Yeah.
stone or brick that would,
So we'd intend
was
to
not-
It'll be a monument-type
conform to
sign.
the monument or base portion of the sign and leave the signage piece similar to what's shown here, which is consistent with what was approved previously.
Do you happen to do the calculation of how much signage they actually have up there?
Well, it's number of signage they're exceeding. So they have 2 signs on the canopy, and 1 just on the storefront, the Noria, that's already would require some relief. And then the Amatos, the Noria on the side, there's a Noria on the back of the building, and then there's, I believe, let me just pull this back up, just to make sure. So you have 1, 2, 3 just on the front of the building. That's not allowed. and then you have one area in the back, and then you have on the canopy in the back, you have 2 more signs that's not allowed as well. So there's definitely more signs that's presented here than what's allowed by the zoning.
Yeah, so that would, if you want all those signs, you'll need a variance.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, we already talked about the monument for the freestanding sign.
Am I missing a landscape plan, or?
That had been reviewed last time.
It had, however, one of the things that we had noted was we requested screening for the diesel lot area, and I don't see any in the renderings, so I was actually gonna ask that myself as well.
Yeah, I'm all set on that, Jeff. We get the, in fact, I've got an extra one of those anyway, so you can save one for,
Right now, we added an island out front. Again, the area adjacent to Rockingham Road is fairly heavily landscaped, and we've added an island inside there to kind of break up that parking lot a little bit.
Okay. So in the 2 documents, right, we have the rendering that kind of shows the diesel lot, which is, I guess, page 4. Versus the actual plan that you just handed me. The plan looks like it's got kind of either a tree or a large bush.
Yeah, we're proposing to get, there's enough room in there that we can get some trees in there,
Okay,
again, to break that. And, yeah, they just didn't coordinate the two.
okay. Yeah, the rendering just shows some very short kind of
Yeah.
flowers and stuff, which obviously doesn't provide a ton of screenage, so.
Well,
Okay.
usually on these renderings, what you're trying to do is make sure the board can see what the building looks like. If I put a big tree in the middle, and somebody's gonna tell me,
Sure.
I hit up what I was hiding what they were trying to look at, so.
Okay,
and usually the architects like to put all the flourishes around it to beautify it in their eyes, so, or to detract us from looking at the building.
I will say, per the other things that we requested, which was for you to come back with some design modifications, including shingle roof, whereas it was metal before, a subtle color palette, and some samples of the exterior materials, which I see you gave us. And I think it's really calmed it down a lot. It looks really good. I like the peaked roof on the canopy. I think that looks really great. That bright green color is still back in there, but I think it's that one strip, and it's kind of drawn down a little bit by the rest of the building being kind of softer colors. But that's my opinion anyway.
Unless they could use a softer green on that, that's
Yep.
one recommendation, so.
Well, that's their branding color, and I think part of it before, I know there was some green in the canopy and so forth, so you can see
Right.
they've gone a long way to address your questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, they had
and
that
they just
green
didn't want to
kinda-
completely break away from their branding.
They had the green kind of circling the canopy before and everything.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, the blue looks good.
The architectural shingles, those are asphalt or asphaltic types shingle?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, too bad Jim Butler's not here to enjoy this. So.
Was mention made last time of a walking path along Sims Drive. Are we going to pursue that?
That's something that we will coordinate and work with the planning staff and planning board to see if that, if we can get it in and if it's appropriate to put in. Again, part of that is, we also have to talk to the DOT and how that fits into the signal and the timing of that signal.
It's probably really a discussion stage anyway. For ascertain feasibility and I think ultimately what the planning board wants.
If I'm not mistaken, the wood siding that you're showing in the material samples, that's that front kind of vestibule area, correct?
Yes, at the main entrance.
Okay.
We also added that element to the back of the building. We had to break up the long wall of the rear building, rear of the building, so we added in some windows and put that arch in there also.
Okay.
Jeff, you'll work some lilacs into the landscaping or
We
favorites?
already
Oh,
did.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't see a list, so I was just,
We did.
okay, I know, I figured I'd be the first
What are
to
we,
say.
crazy? We're gonna come to Londonderry without a lilac? Come on.
Have you considered, now that you've toned down these, very nice, by the way, okay? And I do appreciate the screening that you've put in for the diesel islands. Have you considered using a colored concrete material, maybe something to match your building now rather than standard gray, white?
Colored concrete for,
For the walk up to the building and the islands themselves underneath the gas pumps?
We hadn't, but we could take a look at that to see how feasible it is. Sure.
Aesthetically, maybe a little bit better to match the rest of the building rather than standard grade, also might make you stand out a little bit.
We'll take a look at that, sure. I think we've done darker gray, to try to get it darker to match more of the asphalt and how the staining gets onto the pavement, people spilling their coffees, a little bit of oil dripping here and there. So we've done that before, but we haven't played around with other colors. Interesting concept, yes.
Might be worth, I was actually thinking of several other stations where I've noticed a lot of staining, and that detracts, particularly where you've put together a nice piece of property here, so.
Playing the devil's advocate, I wonder how well that can be maintained if you have to do additional work and you want to put in more or repair an area to have it match as opposed to, well, here's a discolored area in the concrete.
Well, you've got some where you've done dark. Have you had problems with matching or?
A little bit, actually. I think on one site we built, it's at Logan Airport, and we did the dark tinting of the concrete in front. And then we ended up trying to widen the spaces, parking spaces, so we had to tear the curbing out and we, put some more dyed concrete in. It's close.
Yeah.
You can get close.
Even the same color code, sometimes different lots don't have the same hue and stuff. I can imagine that's not always fun to deal with.
Hadn't even thought of that, John. Because our walking trail by the Historical Society is actually a colored tan to kind of simulate
You know,
a dirt
really
path.
colored blacktop.
And it's all in the asphalt, so it's.
Just a question for the other hat I wear sometimes. Will there be trash cans, et cetera, on this site for folks coming through, maybe buying materials or using your islands to throw away material?
Yes, so typically at each lane of islands there, we would have a trash unit with the windshield washer, squeegee, and paper towels in it. We typically would put a trash unit at the entrance to the store, out at the back islands too, and of course over at the outdoor patio area. And usually we put one too at the, we'll have an air unit in, customer air for the tires. We typically put a trash unit there too, because people tend to clean out their cars when they get out.
And off our mark a little bit, from, I think, town council meeting the other night, there are some new opportunities on electric plug-in stations, supposedly from the state of New Hampshire. Are you involved
Yes.
in those at all?
Yes, we are evaluating that. We have done some EV charging. It's a tough business to run right now because the technology is changing so fast, and also there's some issues with how the utility companies have their rate structure set up with demand charges. So at a minimum, what we're doing is we're kind of doing some future proofing. So we'll plan on getting some conduits in at some spots that we'd like to add the EV charging in at some point.
So what you're saying is you'll all be all wired to go, but you won't have the stations?
There's a 50/50 chance we'd have a couple of EV charging stations in when we build this. We would like to. We're trying to find a business partner to work that with, because it's a huge upfront investment, and I know there's some funding available from the state programs. We've done this in Massachusetts too, but we just have to find the right business model, because you can go and invest in a very expensive EV charging unit, and in 5 years, that unit could potentially be obsolete. I mean, we put in 50 kilowatt chargers at one location, and, that was only 2-3 years ago. 150 kilowatt unit is now the standard, and the auto manufacturers are stating that they're getting their cars manufactured so they can take a 350 kilowatt charge. So it's tough to keep up with. The technology is becoming obsolete. So we're looking to try to partner up more with one of the EV charging manufacturers, so that they can kind of take the risk on that with the capital investment.
Again, I don't know where things are at, but Councilor Paul at the last town council meeting spoke about the Energy Commission in town and having had a presentation for $0 stations. And they were looking for business partners for that.
We will most definitely look into that, because we want to put them in. I mean, we sell motor fuel, but our objective is to get cars fueled up, whether it's electricity, motor fuel, and bring them into the store. So we want to be a stop for convenience, but there is a lot of risk if we don't have a good partner. But we'll look into that program that you mentioned with the town. That is of interest to us.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from commissioners?
No, yeah, looks good.
Okay, just made a note that,
Before you proceed of making a recommendation, I just want to caution the commission because of the signage plan. They're here for a CUP, and part of the CUP standards is they have to meet the performance criteria of the zoning, which talks about signage, so it's kind of like a, catch-22. So what they presented to you does not meet the performance standards for a CUP. So that kind of puts the commission in a little bit of an awkward position, so you can't, well, I would recommend that you don't approve as presented, because there's way too much signage there. So that's just something that may require a little bit more discussion on your part.
so the note that I had made said excess signage will need relief and/or variance from the zoning board, but you're saying that our purview includes their excess signage
Well,
as
I just
well.
wanted the board to be clear, and that, you know, if you wanted to be, have a little bit more strong language on that too, just as part of a conditional use permit is what they're here for. They still have to go for full site review, but right now they're just here for a conditional use permit. That's what the application is for. Part of that conditional use permit requires them to meet the performance standards of our zoning, which talks about signage. So they're not meeting what's required for them under the conditional use permit criteria. So you may just want to say that as a note, and that signage will need to be reworked and possibly come back before you as well, unless they're going to do, you know, you may want to go back to the applicant and ask their thoughts on that as well, just so we're all on the same page regarding the signage.
Understood.
Well, so we're here kind of twofold. We initially submitted for the CUP. The CUP's been granted
Yeah,
by the planning board. So
And
this
that's for the
input would
usage.
would be in the file for when we refile the site plan as amended. I guess what I think we'd be looking for is that what we've shown you as far as style of signage and how it's lit, you know, is acceptable to the commission, and that we will either have to get relief on the number and size of signs or conform to the regulations.
Okay. I think the issue stems, though, from the fact that we can't approve unless you are specific about exactly what you're going to do with the signage. So if your current signage doesn't meet your conditional use permit, how are you going to change it in order to make it meet that permit criteria?
So probably what we would need a rendering of, you know, a sign that meets the regulations.
Well, I would say the freestanding sign, we will add a base that would probably match the brick on the building to make that a monument sign. And the sign that is shown on the plan would be as presented. We'll add the brick base at the bottom to make it a monument sign, which is what was previously approved.
Okay, so the base would be what you presented right now, but then the monument sign itself would be a monument sign, and it will reflect the
Well, the
brick,
the monument piece to the sign is basically putting a base on it. Okay, and the last time, this is the height dimension of this sign is the same that was previously approved. The only difference is right now, this shows a tube base versus a monument base. So that we would add brick, you know, from the ground up to the base of the sign to make it a monument sign.
Okay.
Laura, are there any specifications for a monument sign beyond what Jeff is saying?
Let's see. A monument sign is a sign that is a separate structure supported from grade to the bottom of the sign with a base that is larger than the sign. Is the definition of a monument sign, and that's what they have to have.
Bless you.
Yeah, and like I said, this is what was previously approved as far as dimension, height, so forth. We'll just add a base to it. And then the building mounted signage, and any canopy signage will be as shown, lit as shown, but it will be limited to either what meets the regulations, or if we get relief from the ZBA.
Okay, so I've made notes. Freestanding sign will be modified to be a monument-type sign, and building signage must be reworked to meet ZBA specifications. Does that cover?
Meet either town regulations or get relief from the zoning board of adjustment.
Right.
Okay.
So based on that, Laura, do they need to return?
They don't, but it doesn't give you a chance to look at the sign plan after the ZBA. So an option for the board is if they go in front of the ZBA as a representative of the Heritage Commission, you could attend the ZBA hearing and, you know, put some input in at that point in time. Because the ZBA is just going to get an application for what's happening, but may not have the full picture. So that is an option for the Heritage Commission if they wanted to go to that ZBA hearing and provide some input and recommendation, they can do that.
Can you tell me the date of the next CBA
I won't know until they file.
until they file it?
And so just as you're looking at this, so the sign above the door is gonna be what the sign above the door looks like, right? If it has to shrink in size to match the current regulations, it would, or we would get zoning board relief. You know, the changes that we would be talking about would either be a reduction in the signage that you're looking at. It certainly isn't gonna be an increase, right? This is what they would like. If they don't get that relief, then you're gonna take the signs off the canopy, you'll take the sign off the back of the building, and so forth. You know, so what I'm saying is, you know, what you're approving, you're not gonna see, you can't see any more than this. It would just be a reduction if in fact we don't get any relief.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
Yeah, and plus the regulations would trump whatever we do anyway, so.
Yep.
Unless they get, you know, relief from the ZBA.
Correct.
The commission just wants to be cautious of never approving something that isn't allowed currently by the town's regulations or the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Because right now, they would be allowed one wall sign, and they have many more than one wall sign. It's probably like 8 or 9.
Right. Is that one wall sign for the whole building, or,
It says, building mounted signs, one wall sign is permitted per tenant in a multi-tenant structure, which they're not. So it would probably be one wall sign.
I
Go
thought
ahead.
they are a multi-tenant
So
structure?
multi-tenant usually means like a shopping mall where you have different tenants within that. But they could, you know, present that to code enforcement, to Nick, and if he makes a determination that they are multi-tenant, and I'm not going to comment on what that determination would be because that's not my role.
Right.
They can have a discussion with that. But just right now, again, there's an excessive amount of signage that's not allowed by our regulations, and the commission should not put themselves in a position to approve, or give an indication of approving something that is not allowed by the town's regulations.
So if they're not a multi-tenant, they're allowed one wall sign and one freestanding sign? Is that
Yes.
correct?
And the two signs just on the canopy alone, that those would each be considered a wall sign. Well, that's how it's been interpreted in the past. And you can have that if you have two rights of way, so they could get that, but then the one on the building would require a variance. The mottos on the building would require a variance. The one on the side would require a variance. The one on the back would require a variance. The two on the diesel station in the back would require a variance.
So I don't assume that you gentlemen would be willing to say, we'll go with just the freestanding sign and the sign on the front of your building tonight.
We're not gonna commit that, so that's what we're attempting to do. Here you have a building, you know, that has frontage facing, really 3 directions, right? And so, I think more than one building mounted sign makes sense, but we understand we'd have to get relief for that. So really, from this board's perspective, you're approving the style, the look of that sign that's over the front door, right? And the freestanding sign. You know what the other signs look like. We would either conform to the regulations and only provide that, or if we get relief, we would pick up some additional signage, but it would look like what we presented to you. And if you really want us to come back, you know, once that's been identified, we can do that. It's just, all it's gonna be is a reduction or what we've shown you tonight. So
What's the construction timeline?
It's a planning board schedule.
My guess is we're 4 months from, having planning board
Oh.
approval.
That kind of makes things a little easier. If you get to the zoning board between now and 4 months from now, we have 2 meetings in that time frame of this commission. So,
And you may want to consider that they come to the board with their ZBA package
Right.
for what they're going to present to the ZBA, and then at that point in time, this commission could provide input to the ZBA when they're going for their sign application.
Well, I just don't want to, again, you've seen what is being proposed, right? I have no problem with coming back and presenting to you, but if you have comment on what the signage looks like, now would be the time to express that.
so the issue is, as Laura stated, we cannot approve this design review application until we're sure that you're meeting the standards of the ZBA as well. So
Well, I
we've
would
given you
say
all of our
could-
commentary,
you
we
can
just can't approve it.
You can approve it on the basis that the signage either conforms to your regulations or we would have to get relief, right? If you don't object to the
Yeah, I
look
think
and
that leaves
style of the
us,
sign.
I think that leaves us open to some issues.
And
So,
if I could just add in, just to comment on what Jeff's saying, and I understand Jeff's position, but I think your purview is the overall look and feel of a site. So you can see what is proposed now, which is excessive, but if he's taking something out or putting signs at different places, that's going to change the overall look of the site. And I don't know if the commission's comfortable with not knowing what the overall look of the site is. So I know he's saying this is the most that I'm going to ask for, but if he's taking something off here or doing something different, that's up to the board to consider. Are you comfortable with not knowing that? I would ask the board to be prudent in considering that.
Sign over the door.
It's almost to the point, we're better to have them come back at some point in the future.
that's how I
could.
feel as well.
So if you can approve the package on the basis that right now you're approving strictly the sign over the door and the freestanding monument sign, and we will come back if we seek relief and present that to you.
I think that's a reasonable, yeah, I think we can do that. So I'll make a note basically stating that we're only approving the freestanding sign, which needs to be converted to a monument.
Yep.
So that needs to be specifically stated. And the sign that's above your main entrance only.
Yep.
And provided those meet, because I don't know the exact dimensions of that sign over the door, provided that all signs meet the town's regulations.
Yeah,
Is it okay if I make notes on the back of the,
Absolutely.
we have a lot of detail here.
yeah.
And then we would ask Jeff to return the final rendering, please.
Only if we get relief for signage.
Right, only if they're adding signage back in other than what we're approving that gets approved by the ZBA. And then we'll want them to come back so we can review the new signage.
You may want to have them come before they go to the ZBA with that package, because once the ZBA makes their decision, then you get into an advisory role, and I think it would be important for the zoning board to have input from you before they appear in front of them.
Okay.
Well, that assumes that you intend to go to ZBA for relief.
But that's only if they go. If they don't go, then, well, that's moot. But if they are going to
we
go.
do.
You do. So they intend to go, so
So
we
they should
need
come
to invite
before.
them back next time
I would recommend.
prior,
Right, prior.
okay? Jeff?
Can be done parallel.
Yeah, yeah.
And as long as you're coming back, maybe you could show us what you end up with on the monument sign and the,
We can do that.
yeah, as a courtesy at that point.
Yeah, we're just, adding the brick base.
And maybe we could get an answer if you so have any luck on the electric hookups? Maybe talking to the town councilor or on putting a color into the island, your decision on that.
That's probably the most information is DES has, anyway. Jennifer, I can't think of her last name now, I think is the prime individual.
Yeah, so they have put their name in the ring
Yeah,
for this site at the state,
yeah,
for the
okay,
electric charging stations.
well, okay, good, yeah. But I know things are in a state of flux and, who knows what the future's really gonna be, but yes, there's gonna be electric cars, there's gonna be an EV charging stations. The question is what type of charging stations, what type of connectors, it's still, there's nothing standardized.
Right.
And Tesla has their own thing, so.
Tesla has their own, yeah. Okay.
Okay, application approved with following stipulations. Only signage approved is monument-type standing sign and wall sign above main entrance. All other signage requires relief from ZBA.
All set?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next application is for design review of a subdivision plan to subdivide one residential lot into two lots at 86 High Range Road, map 6, lot 106, Belize Real Estate Holding LLC, owner and applicant.
So it was going to be presented by Doug McGuire, but he, based on what they're doing, he asked that I would do that. So this is for 86 High Range Road. It is a one lot that's totaled 14.692 acres. So they're proposing that it be divided into two. One lot will be 1.255 acres, and the other lot will be 13.437 acres. And I think the wrong thing was put into your packet.
I haven't been able to find it here.
Yeah, is this?
Right, I think they
See
put
Wiley Hill Road.
yeah, you have a Wiley Hill Road. So I'm going to pull it up here for you and show you what it is. So we have this lot right here. It is a total of 14.692 acres. So it's high range, and then it's in the back. So what they're doing, I'm going to take my cursor, is they're cutting out this portion for the house, and that lot's going to be 1.255 acres. So there'll be a line that goes like this, and then comes down around. So that will be one lot right here, and that's going to be 1.255 acres. The rest of this will be 13.437 acres. Now, it's a pretty straightforward subdivision. There is some stone walls that are right here that go across in this area, and the applicant has agreed. They're not planning on disturbing them, but has no objection to adding a typical note to the plan that any stone walls on the site that are disturbed will be reused on the premises. The issue that has come up that was just brought to my attention was by Ann Champa from the Historical Society. There is what they call a cellar hole on the property. So a cellar hole was used back in the day with the early settlers, and it has historical value right in this area right here. So there's a cellar hole here, and there's believed to be one here and another one here. So she did reach out to me yesterday, and I did connect her with the owner of the property. She and David Ellis were hoping to go on the property to record it, to view it, to kind of document its existence, to see if there's anything else happening. Now, this is private property, so the current owner does not have to do that. But she is trying to work with the owner for that. In addition to that, it is also, and I have it right here, if you remember our settlement at Dismore Corner. In
right.
here, it also talks about that particular cellar hole, and it says, where am I? So this is an updated edition, 2.1. The board, the commission didn't have this one, and this says that when John Clark, oh, here we go, it says a contour anomaly, so this is for 86 High Range, which is this right here, a contour anomaly about 100 feet northeasterly from the house at 86 High Range Road suggests a cellar hole at a location where Chase depicted J. McCleary in 1857. It is positioned on the northerly side of an old road that itself is on the northerly side of a stone wall. So there is a stone wall that comes here. Let me just see if I can show that to you. It's hard to see, but this looks like it's probably the stone wall right here where my cursor is. And above here is the old road that they're speaking of in this settlement at Dismore Corner. Yeah.
That is probably remnants of the east-west road, because I know David had some details on it, which I haven't related to anything that actually exists out there yet.
Right. So they're trying to do, so based on this new hot-off-the-press information, I did reach out to the New Hampshire Historical Society to see we don't regulate stone walls, so there's nothing that we can do per se because it's private property, but there is, and I think I put, Chris, in your packet, I marked it 3D, a form that the Historical Society, they would like to have completed, just so they can document this particular cellar hole. They don't have it on their inventory, and they would like to. So that would require, again, getting permission from the property owner to go on and take a look at it. So I'm not quite sure if the commission wants me to find out some more information about what we can do as far as the cellar hole goes before they move forward. I know there's, should be discussion between Ann Champer and the property owner about getting on the property. There's also the ability, maybe the commission would want to recommend some type of conservation easement over part of that land as a suggestion. Unfortunately, the applicant isn't here, but I did send him a note today, letting him know that this item was going to be discussed, so he's aware that it's going to be discussed. The property owner is aware that it's being discussed tonight. So I don't know how the commission feels about maybe continue it to get more information about that. Again, it's not necessarily in the commission's jurisdiction. We don't have regulations for that.
But as an
it is-
advisory board.
It's, right, and it is of historical value and concern to the town. So if you wanted me to try to find some more information on if there's other options available, I can work on that, or if the commission wants to proceed, that's up to them.
Yeah, I think we need to find more information.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, if we can do something with a conservation easement or something, that would be great. Who fills out this form? Is this something that the
This is
Historic
something-
Commission?
I'm not quite sure, like I said, this was like at 4:30 this morning, I was, all this came in kind of hot off the press today, so I was speaking with them, and the lady that I was speaking with, she was working from home, so she just kind of directed me here. but she was willing to have more of a conversation with me about this. So I'm not 100% sure if this is something that they would send somebody out, but again, we're limited by the fact this is private property, so nothing can be done
Because
unless.
I know with the Historical Society, they, there's another foundation they put in for the Morrison House. And the state came down and did diggings because of there's a foundation there, the old McAllister farm. So the state had to document everything that was there, which took several months before the Historical Society, or at least, for the plans to be developed for it.
And my discussion with, and again, this is all preliminary because it's hot off the press, my quick conversation with the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources, she indicated to me that they could come in, with authority if it had something to do with a federal regulation or something like that. And obviously, this is just a subdivision of land, so this falls into a different category, is my understanding from my brief conversation with her this morning. So I'm not sure if there's any other avenues that the town can pursue just to, maybe protect this or work with the owner about getting some type of protection on at least one of the potential cellar holes and let the Historical Society come in and document and maybe videotape it. That was stuff that, suggestions from the division today, that they were like, well, maybe somebody could go in and just videotape it so we can have it. They were very interested, again, but we do have to recognize that this is private property.
Sure. Yeah, I would say maybe we continue this until we have some more information and potentially can do something like a conservation easement or something. Obviously, that's pending discussions with the property owner.
So David and Dan will be talking with the property owner also.
I connected them yesterday, so I got permission from the property owner to relay her contact information to Ann. So I did that yesterday via email. So they have now been introduced via email. I don't know if Ian reached out to her today or not. I know Ian is at a meeting this evening and is unable to attend, and David was not able to attend this meeting. So I don't know if anything transpired between the property owner and Ian.
Yeah, because I think that probably would be the initial interaction to see what, how the property owner feels, and then at least the guidance would come from the state.
So Laura, by continuing this, it puts a hold on all activity until we move further on? Nothing else can happen?
Well, no, it just puts a pause on them receiving subdivision approval. So it doesn't put a pause on anything else. So it's not, by us putting, continuing this, is not saying that the property owner can't do anything with their property, if that's what you're asking me.
Okay.
It only would affect their plan for subdivision.
Laura, do we know their intended use for the subdivision? Seems like I was expecting them to want to cut off that top corner.
It's a large piece of land, so I'm sure I
Lots
can't
of
speculate
potential.
that there may be further subdivision, but that would be a
Okay.
speculation. The only thing I can comment on is what
Okay.
is in front of us. But
It's
I
really a-
understand your thought being, if they're doing this, do they have other plans in mind?
Yeah.
That would be something that I would
We
just
don't
be
know.
speculating on.
Yeah, it's really an odd-shaped lot, so it's very difficult to, I think, really do any more. Because you'd have to provide at least access if they wanted to subdivide, let's say the back part off. But I don't think they could meet our regulations. So it's,
And there is wetlands through here, but then, there's an adjacent property that's very big right here. So I'm not sure.
So for now, I've made notes, historic cellar holes on property. Continue to next meeting pending more information, discussion with property owner. Any further questions, comments, anything from commissioners? Okay. Next application is for design review of a site plan amendment for construction of a 7,200 square foot building and associated site improvements at 3 Akira Way, map 28, lot 31-1, Ranger Development Corp. Applicant and Fairwind Properties owner.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Brian Pratt. I'm a civil engineer with Fuss & O'Neill.
Hi, and I'm Sarah Schaefer. I'm an associate at Bruce Hamilton Architects.
And we're here to present to you a site plan amendment from a site plan that was previously approved in 2014. It's located at 3 Akira Way, which is also fronts on Technology Drive. The previous approval was a 9,600 square foot building, and the plan that I have on the front of that packet, the red lines are the proposed building and the proposed edge of pavement. So what we did is we just shrunk the building a little bit. Originally, it was 8 units that were 20 feet wide. A new developer purchased the parcel and wants to develop it nearly identically to what was previously approved, but he really wanted circulation around the building. Where the previous approval, it was a dead end on both sides. He also wanted to widen the units to 24 feet wide. So there's going to be 5 units now, 24 feet wide. And then in the rear, he wants to use that for outdoor storage, basically just like equipment storage. So like parking for, larger equipment other than, just trucks. So it's nearly identical to what we previously presented. The handout has the architecture next, so I'll let Sarah kind of go through and just kind of discuss the architecture.
Hello there. So like Brian mentioned, we reduced the bay size down from 8 to 5, but the exterior elevations are practically identical to the previously submitted elevations. Similar colors to match the Londonderry theme. And we're doing board and batten vertical siding on the front from Hardy. And then we're also going to have horizontal siding in those little areas around the trim of the windows and doors. And then there is, we're doing Rosetta Stone on the bottom. No exact colors or materials have been selected yet, but we're going to do this similar warm colors to match the aesthetics of the town.
Yeah, we tend to gravitate toward the earth tones. So.
Yeah. And I do have samples here if you'd want to look. I don't have as many available, but just so that you see what the colors they're choosing from, if you want to see.
The specific colors or an array of colors?
It's an array of colors. We haven't picked an exact color yet.
So the renderings are just kind of a general idea of the design rather than the colors really aren't set in stone yet.
Yeah, the colors aren't set in stone, but they'll be pretty similar to what is presented.
Okay.
The landscaping hasn't changed from the previous plan.
Correct, yeah. So we submitted this landscaping plan in the packet. It's actually the only landscape plan where I just put the building footprint in red. The previous landscape architect no longer runs that business, Knowles Design. He works for a larger firm now. So basically, the edge of pavement on the right-hand side is where the building ended. And we actually reduced the amount of pavement by about 2,400 square feet. So the front line pulled in about 5 feet. The turnarounds on the 2 dead ends, those have been removed. And we added a little bit of green space at the entry drive. So there was a painted island. We're changing that to a landscaped island. And then on the west side of the building, like I said, we shrunk the building, so I was able to shift the whole building east. And previously, it was just kind of paved up to the building there. And what we did is we added some green space in that area too. So pretty good addition of green space, reduction in building size. The primary reason for some of these changes is originally the building was stepped. So 2 of the units were at one elevation, 8 inches higher were the next 2, 8 inches higher were the next. And that's because the slope of the land, by shrinking the building down, tightening the pavement up a little bit, we were able to make it all one level. So the building no longer steps. So it's going to be much easier to construct, much more functional. If somebody wants 2 or 3 units, they can take 2 or 3 or 4 units now because there's no steps in between the foundations. And we anticipate this to be, plumbers, electricians. It's the industrial 2 zone, so there's a lot of uses that could go in there, but we don't have specific uses right now. It's going to be built and then fit up with multiple tenants. But yeah, the landscaping, we're not planning any changes. We did receive some comments from the Conservation Commission Tuesday night. They're not a fan of the pear trees. So they asked us to maybe make out a substitution for either crabapple or flowering cherry were some of the suggestions that the landscape architect said may be suitable. I don't know if this board has any thoughts on the pear.
Someone will have to harvest them and care for them, so there's probably more maintenance to them than like
Yeah.
a flowering crab. But we've got a list of, plants, trees and so forth.
And we do have the lilacs.
Yeah, lilac
that.
is there. In fact, the list originally came from the Conservation Commission. so-
Okay. Yeah, so they just wanted to get rid of the pears. I did talk to the landscape architect, and he is okay with, like I said, either a crabapple or a flowering cherry. We don't have a preference, I don't know if you do. The landscape architect wasn't at the meeting the other night, so they didn't really have specific suggestions, other than the pear. They said it gets smelly, maybe the fruit rots, or,
Yeah,
yeah. So we're happy to make that change.
more maintenance.
Yeah.
So this building's gonna be right up by L3 Harris?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think they're across Technology Drive. They have a parking lot, so they're off to the right-hand side of the page. And then lighting, pretty much the same. It's just wall packs with one light pole, LED, downcast, dark sky, compatible fixtures. No light spillage. Signage, we don't have specific signage shown because it's tenant, up to the tenants, but we anticipate they'll just each have their own small tenant sign above their door. I believe it's 60 square feet that would be allowed, so that would be, up to 12 square feet per tenant if there's 5. So, 4 by 3, or it'd likely be smaller than that just because of the scale of the door in the buildings. And these aren't really, customers aren't really gonna be coming here. This is more like electrician's kind of workshop where he can store all his
There's
gear.
storage.
Yeah, so we don't anticipate customers. We do show a monument sign with a base that is going to match the stone on the building. And then it's just going to be a multi-panel. They can swap out the tenant names, and that's shown on the site plan that was submitted. That's not on the handout, but
No lighting on the signs.
no, it's, we have some notes on there that, maximum of 100 square feet, maximum of 10 feet tall, and it says not internally lit. It's going to be under there's a pole that it's going to be pretty close to that, so we don't anticipate that it needs to be lit. These are, businesses. They're going to, like I said, not attract customers, and they're going to be kind of, closed, probably by 5 p.m., so I don't think there's a need to light it.
Will the tenant signs be uniform?
Likely, yeah, they'll most likely make it so that they have to be the same height, the same size.
Same lettering, same coloring, same?
It's gonna be the up to the logo of whatever business goes in there, so, I think there'll be some flexibility that, if a company has their logo, they can just put their logo there, but the overall square footage of each sign will be uniform. We're not planning on one big one and one tiny one, it's, they want them to have equal billing.
I guess what I'm talking about is sometimes those signs on multi-tenants can be mishmash. You've got one guy with a purple sign, one guy with a green sign, one guy with an orange sign.
Yep.
And I think what I'd like to see is a uniform tenant sign. Shape, color, I understand on the logo, but maybe the background could be the same, material.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to prohibit them from using their logo if they have specific colors in their logo. I'd like, I don't want to put a burden on this,
I hear the logo.
Yep.
But everything else.
Sure. That's reasonable.
Agreed?
Yep.
And you said this is gonna be a monument sign. You don't currently have a sign plan?
It's in the details. Laura, do you have the full plan set? Should be a few pages. In the upper left, one of those.
There's a sign post.
have that board behind you, too.
So, yeah, it's just a stone base with, just a blank slate for the tenant names and logos. And we had 8 up there, but it's been reduced. And, if one user takes 2 units, then there's only 4. So maybe they end up with just, 4. Maybe the whole thing gets a little smaller. But we didn't get a sign company involved. This was just a sketch. And this was done 9 years ago, so.
So that monument base will match the colors on the building?
Yeah, it's going to match the stone along the, pedestrian level.
What is the monument sign square footage maximum, Laura?
Let me just find it.
I think it's the 100 square feet. We referenced that on the plan, so. Unless it changed. But yeah, back when we got this approved previously, it was 100 square foot max and 10-foot tall max.
Yep, one freestanding sign not to exceed 100 square feet. Of total sign face area allowed, 25% may be used for changeable signage.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that last bit, Laura?
25% may be used for changeable signage.
So your tenant signs can't take up more than 25%, 25 square feet of the,
I think changeable is like words, if they want to add words to it, right?
That would be an interpretation for the code enforcement officer,
Okay.
as if he is going to view changing out tenants as changeable signage.
Okay.
I don't know, that would be a question.
Okay, I mean, they're going to submit a sign permit application at some point, and they're going to use, this as the, what's been represented to the planning board and heritage, so. It may be a little smaller with the 5 units.
For the south elevation of the building, where you've got the horizontal siding, is that like the transition from one floor to the next? The 2 sets of windows, like there's a bottom floor and a top floor between
Correct.
those 2 windows?
Correct. There is a mezzanine level in every unit with staircases. Let me see. I don't believe I brought plans this evening. Actually. One and two.
Sure.
Yeah. So here's the floor plan that shows the line for the mezzanine above, and then on the lower floor plan shows the second elevation with, or the second floor plan, if you just scroll down on this page. Thank you. Yeah, shows the mezzanine level with railing.
You said you had brought some material samples that show the colors that they're considering?
Yeah. Can I come up?
Yeah, absolutely.
You may approach the bench.
So this is the trim work.
Okay, PVC, cellular vinyl type thing, yeah.
So I've got a couple of these. So this is the board and batten. And I believe there's some colors. I'll pass them over here. I only have two. Okay, so over here.
We'll share.
So yeah, we're gonna go for one of the lighter colors.
So one of
for the
these,
bottom. Yeah,
two
one
on
of
the
those
bottom?
two.
Okay.
And then for Rosetta Stone, they have a pretty hefty packet, so there's a lot of color options with them. But we're also gonna go with one that matches siding. So these are a couple of their
Kind
options.
of a light tan.
Yeah, we're gonna go with a light tan. Nothing too flashy, but they have many, many options for where I can hand you this. I have a second one.
Sure.
I'm gonna hand you this first and then we'll pass it over there. This company has a variety of options, and then I also have samples for the Hardy colors.
Oh, wow.
We're
Do
gonna
everything.
go with normally one of these colors here, or one of the cooler colors, like maybe one of these. But it's gonna be in the cool, the more tan, warm family. I keep saying cool. Warm and tan family.
Okay. Anybody else want to see the stone? It's just an array of colors, so.
We'll be sticking with a family very similar to the colors.
Okay, so pretty close look to what is on the rendering, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It'll be matching, basically the existing, proposed from 2014, correct? From 2014. Just some of the colors might have gone out, so we're gonna match colors that were similar.
So you don't show anything on the roof, but assuming there's going to be mechanicals on the roof of the building?
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're just going to be AC units and stuff with no screening on the top, which I think,
It's an industrial area.
yeah, it's an industrial
It's
area and
sloped-
there's really
The
not
roof is
a ton
sloped
of,
to the back.
I was going to
so-
say, there's not going to be a ton of visibility to the roof
Yeah.
from the road there.
Yeah, I mean, you might see it from Technology Drive, because Technology Drive comes up higher, but we do have a pretty robust planting plan along Technology to try to help screen. But, you know, my thought was the AC units would be kind of toward the back, so that they're really not visible from the front, because it slopes back. What's the pitch? It's just pretty flat, right? Like a
Oh,
2%.
it's the minimum pitch we could get. I'm trying to remember exactly.
Yeah,
but-
so if they're, you know, if we kind of locate them toward the back, they won't really be visible from the front. And like I said, it's an industrial area, so.
Okay.
How level is that lot?
How level is it?
Yeah.
Right now, it's pretty level, because they went in and they
okay.
graded it out flat for the pad for the old building.
Okay.
But in the very back, there's a steep slope, because the lot behind us sits up quite a bit higher. Technology Drive sits up quite a bit higher, so there's a slope coming down from Technology. There's a slope coming down from the very back. The front is all pretty flat with Akira Way. There's a detention basin that kind of, so it drops down and drops back up, but it sits pretty close to the elevation of Akira Way right in front of us. And then to the west, it slopes down. We sit higher, so the lot will be flat.
I know it's a steep hill because
Yeah.
the Aviation Museum had a run earlier this month out there for, you know, a 5-mile run. And that's a pretty steep hill all the way
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it goes up pretty fast as you get up around Akira. It's, you know, it starts down at Akira, like at our driveway entrance, where at elevation 317, and then up on Akira Way where, you know, 335, 336. So there's quite a bit of elevation change. But like I said, we planted, or we're planting a really thick buffer along Technology Drive, and a lot of those will be at the top of the slope. So that will provide a good screen looking down, especially like the outdoor storage in the back. You know, we wanted to screen the whole back area.
Right.
Yeah, they already put in the utility stubs. They built the detention basin in the back previously. So it's already partway there.
Okay, I have no further questions or comments. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. I'm gonna approve as submitted with the stipulation that your sign meets the ZBA ordinance of 25% changeable signage. Like Laura said, that's gonna be up to the code enforcement officer,
Sure.
but when you present,
Yeah, it may just be that they have to submit a new sign permit every time they swap out a tenant. So then it's not changeable at that point and without the permit, so.
okay,
Great.
thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our design formal review applications. Next item of business is staff reports, where we have an application for design review of a lot line adjustment plan to adjust the lot line between 7 Chartwell Court, map 3, lot 45-61, and 11 Greeley Road, map 3, lot 165-1. Diana F. Walters, Rev Trust, owner and applicant.
Thank you. So we have a lot line adjustment. I have the plan up behind you. So we have two lots. This one right here is 11 Greeley Road. This one right here is 7 Chartwell, which has access here. What the owner wants to do, the pond is currently part of the Greeley Road, which is this whole lot. This line right here is going to be a new lot line. So they're basically transferring 2.27 acres, which consist of this area right here, to the Chartwell lot. So the original lot sizes were for 11 Greeley, 9.48 acres, and 7 Chartwell was 3.06. Upon the transfer of 2.27 acres to 7 Chartwell, we'll have 5.33 acres for Chartwell, and 11 Greeley will now be 7.21 acres.
Okay.
I don't see any stone walls, so.
I do
that's,
not either.
Pretty straightforward.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Okay.
We're quiet.
All right, approved as submitted. Okay, moving on to other business. We have the town common.
Yes, as the commission is aware, we're in the process of obtaining 3 quotes for the tree, the one spruce tree. I have 2. I was supposed to have had the third one to submit to the commission for this evening. That did not come through, but we do have 2. And in the interim, since the commission last met, and today, Meredith Allen has come into town hall, and there's not a formal committee, but there's a group of folks who are interested in doing the maintenance on the town, in the
Yeah,
Ken
yeah,
Allen
Ken Allen
Forest. So we had a meeting with that group of people to talk about maintenance and delegating certain tasks to Department of Public Works, figuring out what tasks can be accomplished by volunteers. On the planting of the trees, there was discussion about banners, as the commission was well aware of, that we heard last time. So that conversation with a group of people led to Dave Wally, the Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities, having further discussions with the people who are interested in the Kent Allen Forest. And he wanted to come here tonight to kind of talk about his conversation with folks and present some ideas to the commission, just to kind of throw out as initial thoughts for the presentation of the town common.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Like Laura said, my name is Dave Wally. I'm Director of Public Works and Municipal Facilities. I've been proudly serving the town now since August. A little bio on me: I worked for the town of Salem for 26 years. When I departed, I was the Deputy Director of Public Works. And I've lived here in town now for 22 years, and I have 2 children in the school district. One's about to graduate in a couple weeks, so exciting times right now. As Laura indicated, so almost since my arrival here, I arrived in early August, so there was a lot of planning and things going in the works for the Old Homes Day celebration. And that was a great kickoff for me because I got to meet a great deal of people in the community that some I already knew, but got to know them better. And as things have gone forward, I've spoken to a lot of staff members and people of the community. Larry Casey is here tonight, that joined us from the Constance on the Common, and I've had meetings with him and as well as Laura indicated with Meredith Allen as well. So there's two things that I want to talk about tonight. The first being in the Common itself, as you are probably well aware, they had to have few trees removed in the Common due to the decay and the disease and the age of the trees, and perhaps some of the excavation that took place at the site expedited things along. But they were importantly utilized for holding banners for Constance on the Common, making similar announcements. It's been a lot of talk about banners and how to promote things. The Old Homes Day used to have their banner over Mammoth Road, and now it hangs horizontally. We have to bring in contractors to get that put up in time for the event, and because it's horizontal to the road, you can't see it well. But the challenge becomes now, with the trees removed, Constance on the Common is seeking the ability to put up temporary banners and whatnot, which can be cumbersome because they are banners. They'll almost act like a sail. And so it started the discussion of around the idea with Memorial Day flags out on the poles, and now we have the seniors' photos will be going up next week. And so I kind of come up with an idea of creating a focal point, because once those trees were removed, it really kind of gave a new look and appearance, if you will, to the Common, and opened up that whole point, if you will, at the intersection. And so I was trying to think of a way that would be in step with the spirit of the Common and what goes on there and the events that go on there. I've taken my kids there since they were little, with all the events that happen and kids' nights and whatnot. With the town's investment in the Common, it's become quite a popular area, as I'm sure you're all well aware of that. And 4th of July celebrations and Memorial Day, Christmas on the Common is really took off this year, with a little house that we built over there, if you will, that Mr. and Mrs. Claus could pose in front of for family photos. And I think that this would be aesthetically pleasing and really promote community pride if we work towards this goal. So really, this is just an idea right now, or a concept that I had, to something that we could potentially do. And it was suggested to come before the Heritage Commission for, if I start talking to a consultant or a designer or anything like that, I wanted to make sure there was no complete, total objection to that from this board.
I think if anything, we would want to work with the designer also.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to show you some things that I've noted around town. The idea would be to kind of utilize some pole lamps, if you will, with some lighting that would provide some illumination to that area. And can be used for a variety of ways. These are some examples of some poles that are already over in the Woodmont area, and they are becoming quite popular in the New England area as well, bringing back that kind of colonial type of fluted base, LED lighting that can be controlled quite well, and whatnot. We already have some existing pole lamps and fixtures, if you will, in town. The one at the left is, there's a few of those at the Leach Library. The one on the right is the similar ones that we have over at the police department as well. So the town is already, utilizing similar fixtures like that. These are some that I pulled offline in the way that you can utilize these. In fact, some of the single lamp options, you can see the one in the middle there almost looks identical to the one that's at the police department. And they put up banners. I like the idea of banners because if you put a real long one, it doesn't act as a sail and it wouldn't pull on the lampposts, and you can do more tasteful banners in this way. And they can be swapped out easily enough around the different events that we have on the common during the holidays and what have you. And even to the far right, it's a little obstructed there, but you could also bring, some more beauty, the Beautify Londonderry movement. You could have hangers that are on the poles, so you could almost have add some color with some flowers and whatnot if that was desired. But it's just an option. Yep.
Could the banners be changed for events that go on?
Correct. So when you have the Old Homes Day, the banners would go up indicating the week. The way that the intersection is pointed, the way we could orientate it, you'd be able to see on any of the poles the dates that Old Homes Day is. You'd be able to see the dates that concerts on the Common are. Memorial Day, we could put banners that look like American flags or say we appreciate our veterans. I've worked with banners in my previous employment to a great deal of success, and it conveys the message to the public in a neater and easier usage for operationally. We can swap them out easily, and then even at winter you can have ornamental ones for Christmas and whatnot, or on different holidays. So my idea would be to kind of orientate some pole lamps like that around a patio area, if you will, in the area that we previously indicated, kind of down in that common area. But so out in that grass area right there, straight leading back in, would be where we would use, similar patio to what we have already existing there for the war memorials and monuments for the different services of the branches of the military. And the fire department did another nice smaller one for their 9/11 memorial area. I like the area because in speaking with Larry, getting people on and off the common, especially at night when they're having their concerts or whatnot, we have a safe crossing already right there to where some of the parking occurs at Street at the Lions Hall and the various churches with the crosswalk. So if we were to utilize that as kind of the entry point to the common and had a walkway building off of that back into that grassy area, I think it would really bring a nice appearance to the common that would also be able to utilize for other things, such as during Old Homes Day. We've had discussions in those meetings in the planning up to about having an informational area. People often arrive and they come at the common from different points, but we could create that or utilize that space as an informational area, and or even include a temporary small platform, if you will, where the annunciator of the parade could stand with the PA system and whatnot, as opposed to having the long trailer in the parking lot across the street, which takes up a lot of parking. Parking is becoming a bigger concern in the high commodity in the common, as it's becoming popular because it's such a nice place to enjoy. So, just see if I made sure I didn't miss anything on my.
Yeah, 'cause one of the things the commission has discussed in the past, the important thing was getting the drainage and
Yes.
reseeding of the common done, which finally is an opportunity to get it passed at town meetings. Otherwise, it probably would never have passed. But once the, the grounds were, set and everything, there's to look at lighting and also to look at landscaping. And I know our previous town planner had, was a landscaper she had a degree and everything in it, and really was quite adept at looking at plants. And now she and John Vogel, I'm sure you know John
I know
Vogel,
John, yes,
so-
I work with him, he's a great guy.
had, we're looking at, had drawn up some conceptual plans. I don't know where they are, but we really hadn't got very far into looking at lighting and the landscaping. And I know Kevin Smith was very interested in this also, and how to really light it because of safety. And one of our major concerns was the cost. Because putting a warrant article in for the common is not a priority of people's things to do. So we have probably done minimal, mostly because of the cost involved with it. And the Heritage Commission has no budget, so, or minimal.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate those comments. And I've heard of the plan too. I haven't seen it. I've heard, there was even talks of, reorientating the way that the war monument was and whatnot.
Yeah, we solved that for John, as it stays where it is.
Yeah.
Nothing's changing. And I know he had some plans with the walk paths, and we weren't too happy about a lot of walk paths.
Right.
Some are probably needed, but it's got to be handled very, very carefully.
Yeah, I mean,
Aesthetics there, because we hear about what goes on there, and some people do get upset at stuff, and especially the trees.
And that's why I'm here, because once those trees come out, it did present, a new look to the common. And I know the commission has talked about planting another tree as well, and so.
Yeah, we'd love 2 trees, but we don't have the money.
Right. And,
right now.
and if that does, take place anyway, I'd like to make sure that they're at least placed in a way that if this idea is popular enough that we wanted to proceed, that we wouldn't have to then move the trees. And those trees would not serve the purpose of, obviously, they'd be saplings, and they're gonna take
Oh, yeah.
many years
It's not
to.
going to be like it was.
Yeah.
The next generation can reap that.
Right. And so, again, my focus and emphasis of the project was more around, how do we utilize the area to, put up banners and whatnot and do it in a respectful and pleasing way that Londonderry deserves. There will be challenges there on what we do. There is, you can just see it off the pad in the top left corner. There's a basin there that is part of the DOT's drainage system, but I don't think it would be anything that would stop us from doing what we would want to do. So really, the only purpose here tonight was just to see if there's a complete and utter total objection to this thought, then, well, we'll go back to the drawing board on where we can, put banners up or how we do it, and whatnot. Otherwise, in speaking with the town manager, my thought process is to, seek out a consultant that could help us, kind of.
I think we need someone who knows how to put stuff together.
Sure.
Because we have our own vision of things, and sometimes I know, there's some differences. We've always worked things out anyway. But I think it's to get the commission's, full approval. Probably the first thing is with the conceptual,
Exactly.
come in with that, and then, and the old adage is the devil is always in the details. So that's where it usually takes the time, the discussion to go through it there.
Yeah.
But I think we have to proceed, a lot of my experience, because people notice what goes on in the common.
Oh, yeah.
And we to proceed cautiously.
So, again, and that's why I came here tonight to speak about this issue, was this would be a long-term type plan. This isn't something we're doing by the end of summer, and obviously, it's gonna be a costly project. So in order to create conceptuals and start, bringing things before you, I wanted to make sure that this was something that would be welcomed by the commission to discuss and look at and thoughts.
Yeah, because, I mean, certainly we've got the drainage all taken care of.
Yeah.
It looks nice. We want to preserve that. But then to take a look at landscaping and the lighting.
Right.
And usually, we figure the lighting would be coming first, so.
Right.
Landscaping, that's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. We got to get a lot of input on that.
Yeah, when it comes to landscaping, landscaping means maintenance and watering or weeding or, and whatnot. So I like the simplisticness of the common.
Yes, that's the way, I know, past commissions and everything have like the simple look at it.
Yes.
There's suggestions to do this with it and that with it to make it look like a park. Well, it's not a park, it's a common.
Right, and if you start turning it into a garden look, it becomes a maintenance nightmare, so.
Yeah, we have the green team to worry about the garden stuff, so. We just have to take care of Kent's trees, so.
Sure.
Dave, just a couple of quick fire questions here.
Mhm.
Where would this, what are we calling this? Your display, your idea?
I just kind of labeled it as, lighting with, for banners and whatnot.
Dave's thing.
Dave's
Going forward, okay?
Dave's idea.
Where is Dave's thing situated on the common? Is it on the corner there between, what is that, Peabody and Mammoth?
Yep, almost exactly where the trees were, just a little bit closer to the roadway. So behind that traffic control cabinet and out in that open area.
Okay. And so this would not be in lieu of our tree, but our tree might have to move a little bit to
Correct.
make an allowance?
Correct.
Yeah, we hadn't decided exactly where it would go. So
Right.
we'd
And
take advice
so
from
if,
experts.
if you're okay with it, and I, did start working with a designer to come up with a concept that we could incorporate that into where a tree or two trees could go, so that it could either happen with the project if approved, or at least wouldn't be in the way if that day ever came where the project would move forward.
Yeah, I think we're kind of, at some point, planning on another tree. Well, depends how much money we got in unfunded balance.
Yeah, but what I'm hearing is you're perhaps proposing, moving forward, getting a designer to look at it, and maybe incorporating our tree, or perhaps even two trees, into a more holistic design.
Right, correct.
And funding?
That was my
Well,
next question.
so with the conceptual design, I would have engineer estimates, around the project and whatnot, and then it would ultimately have to, go to the taxpayers for the vote. But at least we would have the idea, and like I said, we're gonna have to figure out, how we're gonna handle banners in the time being. I mean, this would not be in place for some time. But I just thought that, going forward, if we got the ball rolling now, I think in years to come, it would provide a nice aesthetic, pleasing, functional attraction to the common.
So at one of our recent meetings, I think it might have been the January meeting, we started talking about this stuff in the Heritage Commission meeting. Specifically the fact that we no longer have any place to put the banners, right? So
Right.
we talked about adding one tree and then, okay, that clearly doesn't give us what we need to put up banners, so what are we gonna do? And something that we kind of started exploring was whether or not we could put some kind of anchors in the ground that we could cap off that would be basically invisible when we're not using them, that we could then put poles into to put up banners. And I think that's still currently with the interim town manager.
Right, that was actually discussed at our meeting with
Right.
Dave, and I believe, Dave, you had some concerns just about the maintenance of that, the liability of things sticking out of the ground.
Yeah, so depending on when you the type of banner that the Constant the Common uses is, again, it's a sail. So the types of anchors that you're gonna have to put in the ground to hold that, whether it be temporary or permanent, would have to be fairly significant. You'd have to have some tie-back rods and whatnot that now people are pounding spikes and stakes into the ground. We have an irrigation system out there now. We have underground electric. So that causes me a little bit of concern that if it's not put up in the exact right way every year, then and these are volunteers that are doing it, and they go out and they start pounding away, that things can go wrong. So we'll have to be very careful as we proceed, you know, in these years to come, and that's kind of why I started to think about this, and again, all the different various conversations that I've had from the moment I've arrived here till now, it just got me thinking of something more grand and out of the box that would suit the needs of a variety of functions of that common.
Yeah, because I know banners are a wieldy thing to put up and down, and they're heavy. But I mean, because Stephen Lee was in, we had a good conversation with Stephen. And, you know, I think we're probably doing more brainstorming than anything on how to, you know, do it. And that's where we talked about, you know, having like a permanent structure that's in the ground and be able to put a pole in it. I mean, that's a simplistic way of looking at it. I'm sure there's a lot more detail involved.
Right.
But there'd have to be someone to go get these poles, how heavy they're gonna be.
Correct.
How tall, you know, and then getting the banner up there.
Yeah, I think the logistics being cumbersome, right? We actually had talked about DPW owning those poles and installing them when somebody needed to use them.
I think I might have heard that. That may be why I'm here too.
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah, I was saying, oh yeah, Dave could do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so, exactly. And so, you know, with that comes, you know, where do you store them? Where do you know, put them away? How do you, if you have a significant sleeve that's going to remain in the ground because it would probably have to be secured, you know, with concrete and whatnot. Again, it's a wind sail, you know, and so, and I remember last year they put up the student banners and we had wind come blowing through and a good portion of them got damaged right away, and they were back out there straightening them out and repairing them. And so, you know, then when you have these poles, they are going to be quite heavy, and where do you store them? And so it got me thinking about a larger scale picture of how to handle all of that, because it's the same things that are going on with the flags going up, and then we take them down, and then we're putting up the pictures, and then we're taking those down, and then we're going to put the flags back up, and then Concerts in the Common will start, and then Old Homes Day, so the Concerts in the Common will come down, and then the Old Homes Day band's got to go up. So that's a lot of work back and forth for all that. Where if we had something that we could have these banners on,
Right, I mean, it's probably getting beyond the realm of what a volunteer can do.
Correct.
Someone might do it for a while, but say, oh, this is too much, and then
correct.
usually probably looking for
And-
volunteers. There's no replacement.
And then we're tasked with the challenge of storing all this material. I mean, we have everything you can think of stored in trailers at DPW, right down to, you know, the PPE stuff for voting and whatnot. And all that plexiglass got to go somewhere. So we have that. We have the Christmas decorations and the new Toll House cookie gingerbread house that we built, and then it morphed into, well, let's have an informational booth down there for Old Homes Day. Well, if we build something like that, it's got to go somewhere when it's done. And so all these, I'm trying to think of a way that all these ideas could be embraced, but streamline it, make it a little bit more efficient and a little bit easy to just roll up some banners and put them away, you know, at the end of each event, as opposed to having to lug and move, you know, big metal poles and having sleeves in the ground that could fill up with water and then rust and whatnot, or heave with frost heaves, and then it becomes a trip hazard on the common and things of that nature. So,
When we originally discussed this, Dave, I was hesitant about having a parade of banners on the common. I hadn't even thought of them as a sale, but I know that they have a limited life to them, and a lot of these are charitable or other organizations, and end up with a lot of ratty-looking banners, okay? But this looks like much more tasteful solution, and I'm assuming by your support that these are more durable, last longer, and are easier to maintain. And
the banners that I utilize in Salem have a lifespan of 5 years, and I even found that some of them that were in the shade and whatnot wouldn't fade as long, and we had them for 6-7 years. You know, the sunlight will degrade them, but they do last quite some time, and they take the wind quite well in that type of a format, as opposed to a big long You know, and the concerts on the Commons ones or the Old Homes Day one where they have specific dates on them, you know, you might be getting new ones every year anyway, is I kind of think I know that's what they do for the Old Homes Day. I don't know, is that, you get a new one each year for?
No, we design ours so that they're usable from year to year.
Year to year, okay. So there's no specific date on them?
I think it just says Wednesday night, Wednesday.
Okay,
nights on the
okay,
calendar.
all right. So,
easy.
yeah. So, but they are very durable and high quality.
So taking this from Dave's thing to construction is at least a couple of years, right?
Exactly.
What happens in the interim? What does everybody do in the interim?
That's what has been yet to be decided. We're gonna have to figure that out, and, you know, I plan to work with Larry on that and see what's the best way to do it. Obviously, I'll have to be heavily involved with, you know, driving in of stakes and whatnot, so that we don't damage anything that's underground out there when we're doing it.
Yeah, that's the problematic thing with all the expense and what we've done in
Exactly.
common. It's, we want to protect it as much as possible.
Right. And it, you know, short of putting a message board there, which obviously just would not be correct, we're gonna have to figure something out, on how to erect it. And maybe we keep it closer to the ground. I know you'd like it to be, you know, elevated, but maybe it's something that's more closer to the ground and,
Because it's got to be well visible to the motoring public that goes by
Yeah.
there, probably doesn't pay attention to a lot of things. But,
Yeah.
I know there's certain individuals that love the concert in the Commons, they know when it is, and they go, so it's.
If you don't mind, I have some thoughts that I would
Yeah,
like to share.
sure.
And you mentioned Steve Lee coming here. My name's Larry Casey. I've lived here in town since 1985, and I'm the chair of the Londonderry Arts Council, and obviously Concerts on the Common is a major initiative of ours every year. Steve and Julie and I are in constant communication over that, and Steve probably would be here tonight, but he's on vacation in San Francisco. The signage is, you know, is one thing that Dave and I discussed, and he pointed out something else that I think is near and dear to our hearts. This will be our 22nd year of Concerts on the Common, and we're building our audience base every year. We're generating more contributions to that end, and we're doing some advertising through other channels. So the banner that we historically, you know, have put up on those trees is less critical for us than it was in the past. And we certainly want to make sure that whatever we do is consistent with, you know, what should go on in the town in terms of look and feel. We don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize anybody's safety. And one of the things that Dave, you know, mentioned in his presentation, it concerns access to the Common. And I've had a meeting with Mike Malaguti about safety concerns as we start our season, which begins on June 6th. The more people we bring onto the Common for concerts, the more concern we have about people safely getting across the road from, you know, the various parking areas. There is a crosswalk coming from the Presbyterian Church, or the sidewalk near the Presbyterian Church, to the driveway leading to the bandstand. But many people come through this intersection, and what you know is interesting to me is a potential opportunity. And again, I'm just sharing my thoughts with you. Not that this is necessarily your purview, but whatever this looks like in an end state vision needs to take into consideration safety. You know, there's pedestrian crossing signals at that intersection, and there's crosswalks, you know, traversing both roads. But they terminate right by that yellow barrier, at which point the ground slopes off significantly. And one of the concerns we have is we want to have safe access to people with disabilities, to elderly people who are coming onto the Common. And it's a challenge to get across those roads and down those slopes and onto the Common safely. So I happen to like the idea of, you know, replicating the patio or the walkway leading up to the, you know, the War Memorial, having something like that with a proper grade leading onto the Common so that people can get on safely you know, and get off the common safely. And it's more of an issue later in the year because we lose daylight. The last concert we're doing this year, typically we would do 9 concerts. We've been asked in recent years to do the Old Home Day concert, so we've taken that on. We're doing an extra concert the week of July 4th, but the August concerts end in the dark. And so it's even more of an issue getting people with disabilities and elderly people off the common safely. And so I just wanted to weigh in and say that the signage is, you know, one matter to consider. I like the idea of the pole with interchangeable signs. We're self-funded pretty much. The town has upped our budget recently, but we do a lot of fundraising, and we're pretty frugal about signage, so we try to get as much mileage out of those as we can. But we really are very concerned about public safety. And this, to me, is really a gateway to the common, that intersection right there, because people come, you know, come from the Lions Hall, the churches, the Grange Hall. Sometimes when we have overflow crowds, they're parked at Matthew Thornton, coming up or coming down Mammoth Road to this intersection. So to me, it looks like an opportunity to create a very nice gateway, very visible, and draw people's attention to the common and to the bandstand, which I think would be very beneficial.
How long do you think it should be? Or in your mind, how long should that walkway be?
I'm not an engineer, I wouldn't know.
Conceptually.
Conceptually, I don't know.
So the existing patio for the War Memorial, I just pasted off, and it appears to be a 50-foot radius, diameter, excuse me. I think that's, I see the walkway right there as being perhaps the appropriate size that we would build off the back side of that, where the crosswalks are. But the diameter of the patio area, I don't think needs to be quite so grand. But it would depend on how many pole lamps we would want to, you know, put around it. If we only wanted 3, that's one thing, but if you wanted 5, then maybe the diameter goes out a little bit more to get more separation between the poles and the banners. But that would be all worked out in the design phase.
Could you have like where the intersection is, come down on a walkway that would just go right down to?
That's it
where
right
the
there.
Memorial is, so it would travel along here, down to there.
Well, I wasn't, I mean, obviously, anything can be done, especially in the
Yeah, because I'm
design
looking
phase.
at that, the memorial there as the focal point. And that's kind of what you'd want people to see, you know, for respect of, you know, those who
Yeah.
fought for our country.
Well, this area, and again, it's taken on a different view now with those trees, because the view from the intersection, those trees actually used to hide that memorial quite a bit. And you wouldn't even see it. If you were heading south, you wouldn't see it until you get by it. So, you know, a smaller patio area to the right of where those trees are now is kind of almost in the shadow area, right there where you had it. Right in there would be where your patio would be, and then a pathway would lead over to safely over there. And then you just have your gradual grades off of the patio, similar, exactly the same as you do at the War Memorial. Connectivity between the two pathways, I suppose that's something that you could certainly entertain.
Then you get the slopes, you get slopes in there, so that make it difficult.
It would, and it would create more drainage issues, because you would almost create a pocket, if you will, right in that area, right where the cursor is right now. But, you know, anything can be done, it just drives the cost, that's all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you know, that we want to necessarily make the common all locked up to the previous part of our discussion about having pathways and walkways and vegetation and flowers. It gets too busy, and then maintenance-wise,
Yes, yeah,
maintenance-wise, it becomes cumbersome.
Yeah, because I know John had a drawing with paths and everything, and the commission didn't like
Yeah.
that at all.
No.
We just want to keep it simple and
Yep.
You know, 'cause maybe just a walkway in that's not
And-
as wide and grand as the,
Yep.
the memorial.
And
area.
that's exactly what I was envisioning, was just something small yet functional.
So at least it kind of gets
please-
to the point where it kind of levels off and someone in a wheelchair can,
Correct.
you know, go through the grass.
Yeah, the reason I can't answer your question, Art, is there are, accessibility regulations in terms of, as I know you're aware of, in terms of the slope and pitch of,
Yeah, we
wheelchair
get too far,
access.
then we gotta meet all that, so if we, in essence, if we just leave it the way it is, we're safe there, but it's not the safest way to get in.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I share the story with people, but there's one concert goer, he's there every week, and he has one of these motorized carts, and he parks along Pillsbury Road there on the bank, offloads his piece of equipment, and then comes down the bank with, on an angle where, and we turn our backs because we're afraid he's gonna roll over every time he does it, so, I just wanted to weigh in on the accessibility.
I didn't know if like where the parking is, the bandstand, that could be used for handicap access.
Yeah, we are, and that's what Dave and I were discussing.
Right.
We're gonna,
Because that's, to me, that's more level. You know, and then you get the striping and the road for pedestrian crossing, whether the cars pay attention to it or not is another thing.
that's another issue, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And initially, I had only really conceptualized just a small round area with the pole lamps and whatnot, a little focal point, almost as if like you were to have a gazebo there, but just an area. But then after talking with Larry, and then as we were standing there talking, and I'm looking at the pedestrian crossing and seeing how it does drop off quite quick, but I'm like, well, we could almost replicate what we already have there and then provide that access.
like a-
Whether if people choose to use it or not is, that's up to them, but it would be there. So,
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting that those two crosswalks
yeah.
terminate right at
Right
that,
there.
right there, and then beyond, there's no sidewalk or anything to access at that
There's,
point.
there's nothing.
It almost says, good luck getting on.
Yeah, it's not the most accessibility for handicap, but I have to give handicapped people a lot of credit for getting into places that
Yeah.
I probably would, if I was like that, I probably wouldn't even, try, but.
Well,
But even young families with strollers and whatnot, it doesn't provide ease. Again, it drops off, like Larry said, fairly quick, and then there's the drainage grates right there. So it almost, it's just not a good way to get on the common, but it is where they technically should.
Yeah, like a 4 or 5
Yeah.
width, trail, then a little bit of a circle that kind of finishes it off.
Yeah, and even to show the point of this photo's, this aerial shot is fairly dated, because now there is an actual attenuator there now and everything else, so, and concrete pad.
Yeah, I think the only reason the state put the pad in is so people can reach the signal
Yeah.
for the handicap.
Well, I believe they did some resurfacing in that area not too long ago, and when the state does that, they are obligated to, look at the ADA compliance at signalized intersections and whatnot, and so that's probably why they did that.
You guys refresh my memory. If you're parking in the Presbyterian lot there and crossing that street, is that lit? Is there a light there?
No, and in fact, Larry and I were talking about that, and there is a utility pole there, and he was expressing concern about how at nighttime, when people are coming up Pillsbury Road and on that hill, that grade, that there isn't any illumination there.
Yeah,
And
I made
that's-
that crossing in August.
Have you?
For one of the
Yeah.
concerts, and done an act of contrition before I've done so.
Yeah.
but,
And something to consider, that, we could put a light on that utility pole, but, where I was in Salem, they throw lights up everywhere. It's a little different here, though, in Londonderry, and so I don't know that was something that somebody would want year-round, because it's not something you can turn on and turn off with a light switch, but,
Well, if you're, one of your prime enticements to the taxpayers is going to be the safety of these crossings, in addition to making the whole thing attractive. maybe you could include a lighting that back section as part of the
Yeah.
project. For a penny and for a pound, right?
Yeah.
Well, there may be some grant money available. I'd have to research it, but for the last 2 years, we've been awarded a modest grant of between $5,000 and $6,000 to support Concerts on the Common from the New Hampshire Council on the Arts. Some of that money comes from the National Endowment for the Arts, and I attended a webinar last week on accessibility requirements associated with that funding. But the grant that we received is all about increasing accessibility and reaching out to underserved people in our community. And from our perspective, one of the things that pleases me the most is that the young people moving into town are learning about the Common by coming to concerts. I mean, many of these folks, it's the first time they've been on the Common when they come out for a concert, and they bring their kids and their neighbors and all that sort of thing, and I think it's just a great way for them to plug into the community. But the elderly in town, and I count myself in that number, and people with disabilities were written into our grant in terms of outreach and trying to find ways to get them safely onto the Common, which is why Dave was kind enough to meet me and talk about how we can use that parking area adjacent to the bandstand for handicap parking. We took it upon ourselves with Kevin Smith's permission to print up some handicap parking signs, and we tried to use that as much as we could. But I think we can probably get no more than 7 or 8 vehicles parked in that area. But there may be grant money available to do some capital improvement work to improve accessibility and outreach in the community. But I can certainly look into that. But that's my take on it. It's a real asset to the town. I remember when I moved here, in '85, I went up to Toys R Us to buy a swing set for my son, and I borrowed my neighbor's truck, and I drove all the way down Mammoth Road and never touched my brakes. There were no lights at that intersection. There were no lights at 102, I don't think.
Remember those days too?
Yeah,
so-
but it's changed a lot, and
A lot less lights on 102.
yeah. So, anyway, that's my take on it. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Any more questions or comments, concerns on the idea?
I think, so you're looking to put kind of the same thing like you were saying about the fire department, right? Like a walkway, circular kind of patio area. And you said it'll be kind of informational, so whether it's a gazebo or some kind of little structure there that you can put information or...
Well, no, there wouldn't be a structure. It would just be a patio that, surrounded with lamp poles and then the information is on that. But then during certain events, if you wanted to put an easy up tent, or they wanted to put up a temporary small stage for somebody to announce the parade as it's coming down, it could be, that area and that space would be flat, it'd be level, it'd be safe for somebody to do something in a temporary way. But no, I wouldn't think that a structure would, people were talking about an information booth and whatnot, and I don't think that would be.
Yeah, it's a little extravagant, and
Yeah.
there's a cost to it also.
Yeah.
but,
But it would be a flat, level, safe area for people to come to during certain events that, you could be
Usually putting
utilized.
structures on the common, and even with the bandstand, there's vandalism.
Right.
One of those unavoidable things that certain individuals attempted to put their mark on something.
Yeah, and it'd be done, it wouldn't be poured concrete, this would be pavers, and something could be said, it could say Town of Londonderry and the pavers, or the year that we are incorporated, or whatever, we could do with the design and the pavers, but it'd be something that would be tasteful and
Kind of
appropriate for
be
the
similar
common.
to what is on that walkway going in.
Correct.
Dave, assuming a nod from this committee, what would be your next step?
At that point, I would go and work with the town manager to seek out a consultant, a designer, if you will, and start bringing this to life and creating another presentation that
Or
obviously
would
will
have the
come forward.
designer come in and we'll
Absolutely.
have a discussion on the design.
Different types of materials, lamps, single lamp stuff. I just threw a variety of things out there that are already existing in the community that I thought would be something that we would want to keep in concert with that, that look and that appearance, so that there's some commonality as you move throughout the town. You're not seeing different themes or looks or appearances and whatnot.
Yeah. One of the things Kevin and I, we'd taken a walk to the common and talked about, you know, plans to do with it and everything. This is back when I was still chair, but looking at trees to put lights in, you know, what would, you know, we figured there are four lights we figured could cover everything, but we're not lighting experts.
Yeah. And so that's,
Then if you put a light in the tree, what do you do to the tree? The tree gets damaged or
Right.
something.
so to answer your point, was just before I even considered spending even $1 of taxpayer money to come up with a concept, I wanted to see if the idea was welcomed here or if it was, no, we don't want anything like that. We'll just deal with some anchors and put a banner up from time to time when we need to, and that's sufficient for the common. If that's the purview of the board, then so be it. But if this sounds entertaining and thoughtful, then, you know, I can continue working towards it.
I mean, I would just probably like to proceed conceptually anyway, and then see what we've got.
Correct.
And how, you know, even with, you know, things like this, to see what, how it fits in. Because, you know, the handicap thing, I think, is important, and even someone on foot, you know, you're right there on that cement apron, and all of a sudden, there's grass and there's a slope there, it's not,
Yeah, again, I'll give Larry a lot of credit to that, because it was something that I wasn't even really focused on at the time when I was coming up with this idea, and then after meeting with Larry, and we were standing there talking, it all seemed to kind of come together, and that's when I looked over at the other pathways that lead onto the common and whatnot, so.
Yeah, I attended the Old Home Day kickoff meeting, and one of the comments or string of comments that came back around concerts on the common is when the seniors have their senior supper at the Lions Hall, many of them don't venture across the street because they don't feel safe in doing it, you know, and they try to get them across with, you know, with vehicles and that sort of thing, but you know, that to me spoke volumes about how inaccessible that common is right now. And I'm into preservation, believe me. I've enjoyed that, you know, for many, many years, and I don't want to see it, you know, overbuilt or desecrated in any way.
do you utilize the police at all to help with traffic and?
I've talked to Mike about that, and we're, you know, if we feel we need a police detail, on occasion we've done it. I mean, we had our typical attendance leading up to this year, and we're hoping we're going to exceed it, is somewhere between 200 and 400 people come onto the common every week.
I think there needs to be some, you know, method of control with the police.
Yeah, I'm working on that with Mike. But we actually had a concert a couple of years ago before COVID where we think we had over 1,000 people show up for that concert. Wow. We hired Livingston Taylor one year, and I know we topped that number. So, I mean, our mission is to bring, you know, the arts to the community, and the more people we can get on that common for the concerts, the better off we are. But we need to do it in a prudent and, you know, safe way, so.
That's really good. My only complaint about the concerts, it's on Wednesday night, and I got planning board Wednesday night.
You know, that, we struggled with it, you know. Somebody asked me how long I've been involved in the Arts Council, and my answer is before the turn of the century, because I really don't remember when I joined, but we struggled with which night should we have it on.
Yeah,
You know,
that's always a problem. I mean, we've been the fourth Thursday since, I don't know how long. It was, I think it was even when Marilyn Ham was the chair. This goes back into the early 2000s, and someone couldn't make it, but could make it then, and it's stayed the same ever since. So we're all creatures of habit, so you get used to the same nights. So.
Well, you should do what we do. We cancel our art council meetings during the concert season. resume after Labor Day.
Have to utilize my vice chair or something and sneak out for a concert.
Guys, I have to say, I think this looks great to me. And I'm speaking to Art, I don't have Wednesday meetings. My wife and I are frequent flyers to the concert on the Common. And there've been nights in August where I found my way out of the Common, or onto the Common by looking for the smell of the barbecue truck, for the music. So I can absolutely appreciate the safety concern there, and I think subject aesthetically to whatever you bring back with the design or anything, I think this is a great concept.
Thanks, John.
I think you're probably going to meet with some resistance, obviously, because of exactly what you said, right? A lot of people are conservation-minded. Adding a second patio on the same space in the Common, which is like kind of sacred around here, right? I think there are definitely going to be some people who are against the idea. However, it can never hurt to get a conceptualization, right? And see what it's going to look like, see what kind of ideas come out of this, and take a look at it. And especially if it's going to improve safety for access.
Yeah, that's, I think really comes down to a balance, you know, what the aesthetics, how it looks, how people feel about it, and, you know, but I think we'll do it a step at a time, you know, it's.
Yeah. Yep.
Usually, like, we'll have a meeting to discuss it and see what we get back, feedback from the public that's,
Yeah.
that's watching.
Ultimately, it's going to come to a vote either way.
Yeah.
So,
Understood.
right.
What's your signage requirements out there? What's the demand for the signs? How many do you need for what functions, and how large should they be?
Well, these, I don't know if these would fall under signage regulation. Perhaps they would. They're certainly temporary in nature. But again, I think that would be vetted out in the whole design process. You know, I mean, some of these poles, you can put 3 banners on each side. I think that might be a little bit much. So singular, and then there will be times when there are none up. Wintertime, there would be no need for it. You could have some up for around Memorial Day, but perhaps not need any of it, you know, in the early spring. And then certainly around any main event, like the concerts on the Common or Old Homes Day, you'd have banners up for that. Other than that, it could be just simply not even really signs, just pictures of American flag or a simple message, welcome to Londonderry, or even a simple, we appreciate our veterans, where it's in such close proximity to the
Do the
monuments.
banners that you're proposing
Mhm.
contain enough area to get across the messages that you're trying to do? Or would you really rather have something larger?
Well, the 3x5s usually are sufficient, and with the close proximity that it would have to the road, would certainly. The thing that you got to be careful about with signs, and even I believe this is, I'm not speaking specifically for the DOT, but some of the idea of not having the banners over the roadways is because it makes people look up, takes their eyes off the road, draws their attention to it, and things can go wrong. But this is at a signalized intersection as well, so perhaps while you're sitting there at the light, instead of them people texting or whatever, maybe they'll look over and appreciate a nice focal point, or, wow, there's the dates of a particular event that's coming. So, but I would steer away from the larger banners, if you will, but not something so small. They do make them 24 by 24, and that might be a little bit small, but we can certainly seek that out with the engineers as we look at it and design it, and make sure that the lettering size would be appropriate, so that, yeah, because the last thing we want to do is put up a banner and you can't even see it because it's too small in nature.
Right.
Yeah,
So it
I
sounds like
understand
a
your point.
3x5 banner would,
Right.
as opposed to you would, if you had your druthers, you might like to have like a 4x8
Yeah.
sign out there at ground
And
level,
that would
slightly
depend,
above it.
yeah, that would depend on the height of the poles that you use. Like, for example, the ones in the slide that are at Woodmont, they're very tall, so you could, but that's for street illumination, and I don't know that something like that. I only chose those as just for the appearance of what we already have in the community. But I think those would be a little bit tall, and a little bit more than what we're looking for. I think something more along the lines of what we already have existing at the police and whatnot, the library. On a pole like that, you can certainly put a 3x5 banner, and it would be adequate for the space.
I've seen banners used elsewhere successfully that way.
Yep.
Changing
In
the base.
parking
And
lots
They
and
haven't been very big.
on college campuses and whatnot, yep. In fact, there's some in the parking lot of the gymnasium across the street as well. There's only a few of them up still, but they're there.
Well, I'm just being silly, but you just need another cannon out there. And you can put a banner between them and you won't worry about
There you
anyone.
go.
Yeah, at least that would be down lower. so-
Yeah.
But it was quite a few years ago, because I used to be on the Old Home Day Committee, and the town got a very terse letter from the New Hampshire DOT about banners over the roadways.
Yes.
Because the fire department would always string it across, and they were very, decided to err on the side of caution. And they said,
and-
you know,
And the beauty of banners is you can have them double-sided, so like the Constance on the Common one was a singular face side and it was hanging from the tree. So if you were coming from the south, you really didn't see it. If you were coming up east-west, you really didn't see it. It was really only if you were traveling south that you would see it. So with this style, you can orientate them on the poles and they'll be double-sided, so no matter which direction you're approaching it at, you're gonna see it. You go by the Common enough times, you'll see the dates or the things that are coming to.
I know we even had a discussion, and this goes back probably like 20 years, fencing along the common with granite posts and white cross pieces. And the commission got a lot of flack about that, and that's why there's none.
Yeah. So I think I've heard you clearly, you're okay with me proceeding with a conceptual idea, and certainly that would fall through all the rigors and the processes and let everybody weigh in
Yeah,
moving
once you
forward.
get something, bring it back
Yep.
to us, and we'll discuss it and see what we get from public for comments.
Excellent.
and,
The last thing that I have is closely related to the common as well, and that is another concern that I've heard since I've been here, and ironically enough, it was around the Old Homes Day when we discovered what it would be great if we only had an access off of Mammoth Road on the back side to the expansion area. And if you could go to the next slide, Laura. So currently, the path that comes from Pillsbury all the way through the forest and right up to there is already in place. And if a fire apparatus needed to get in there, or the forestry unit, or an ambulance, whatnot, would have no problem driving to that point. Turning around, though, is not possible. And from that point out to Mammoth Road is about 100 feet. There's a couple of saplings. There's a rather tall, I guess you'd call it stump, because the pine tree snapped up about 20 feet high and must have fallen in the road and was removed many years ago. And it seems to me that I've heard the discussions and have spoken with Meredith as well, that was kind of envisioned as, and spoken with the fire chief as well, that would be an excellent thing to have. It would be gated, it would be only utilized for that, or perhaps maintenance purposes when if they decide to go in and do some foresting in there as well, removing of hazardous trees or whatever is needed to be done. It would be an easy access to get equipment in and out. And when I realized it was the kiddie area and the expansion area, if you will, was a big success, a big hit, and they had the train rides going through the paths and whatnot. And in order to get all their equipment in there, they come with a truck and a very, very large trailer. And we weren't letting anybody on the common to drive on. And we're
Yeah,
highly discouraging that now.
the comment should not.
Come-
is
come
not-
too
not to be
far.
Driven on.
We've come too far to continue to treat it like it's a parking lot, so I wouldn't allow it. The driver of that truck, however, was pretty good, and with my guidance, we were able to get him around the backside of the bandstand so that he had a fairly short distance to lug in all the equipment that they had to set that area up. And that's kind of where it got me going and walking around and looking and going, man, if this was just connected another 100 feet, he would have been able to drive in here right to the backside of that, offload his equipment, and could have made it down and out to Pillsbury Road safely. And that's kind of what kicked off the conversation, and then people were talking about, well, they had always desired an emergency access because it pretty much splits that area in half, so that if anybody had a medical emergency or whatnot deep inside the area, they wouldn't have to go so far to extricate somebody if they had to. So,
And Mammoth Road being a state highway, you'd have to have New Hampshire DOT.
yeah,
permission.
in my, if you go to the previous slide, Laura, that's one of my points, is that we would obviously have to talk to them about a curb cut. It wouldn't be a typical curb cut, but.
Still, nevertheless, as access, they may not want anyone.
Oh, correct.
No more curb cuts.
But and again, I come here for purposes of discussion, and I didn't want to go and seek out DOT approval. Few bullet points down, you'll see, assuming a state DOT curb cut would be granted. But again, I didn't want to seek out that permission if, once again, I find myself, that we're all set with this idea.
Yeah, I think we'd have to walk the area to see what it's like, because we're trying to keep the forest from being disturbed and commercialized.
Yeah, this would be a very small, no larger than the existing trail. Limited brush would be removed. Because again, I wouldn't want to the idea is not to make it look like a driveway entrance. I don't want people pulling in there.
You don't want, yeah. you don't
But we
people
want,
using it, and
but
you're
we
gonna
want to
have,
know that it's there for the fire department. They would have their Knox box, lock and key on it, and whatnot. It'd be a gated access point.
But I mean, there could be bicycle, foot traffic going through there, and Mammoth Road's a busy road, so having another access point, I'm looking at it more from, planning perspective.
Yeah,
You really don't want it, but
correct.
I think the DOT would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not your traditional curb cut, whereas vehicles would be.
It's still a curb cut.
It is,
Curb cut's a
correct.
curb cut.
Yeah.
So-
But the exiting and entrance would be from controlled emergency personnel and maintenance personnel. So it's not a public access point.
Are you gonna have to treat the land in some way to support emergency vehicles going through there?
All of the network that's already in there, it fully supports. We've been in there with our dump trucks and whatnot to have to do some of the work that we've helped out the volunteers. So it already supports the loads.
Okay.
It's just that 100-foot stretch from that point out to the road that we in-house DPW personnel, we have the abilities and the capability of doing that.
Okay.
So for relatively short cost. There's no mature trees there to really deal with other than maybe one. And we noted walking, you see the blue, or maybe it's a purple triangle midway on that path right there. There's a little wiggle in the road right there, if you will. And there's a tree that's right there about 8 inches in diameter, and it's pretty well, only half of it has foliage. I think that's a stretch. Probably a third of it has foliage on it. So it's probably a tree that should be removed anyhow. And that would help just straighten that out just a little bit. Not that it would be an issue for an ambulance to get by, but if an engine had to go in there or the forestry truck, if they're rushing, I wouldn't.
Fire in there or something that.
Correct.
One of the things, I remember having several conversations with Kent about that. He had, I know, widened certain pathways so we could get the DPW truck.
And that's this exact road that we're speaking of. It's not any of the narrower paths, none of it would have to be widened or touched in any way. We're going to be going in there because they've decided to buy the regrind, if you will, or wrap and recoat the pathways. And so, again, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is the time when I bring this forward and to discuss the possibility of it, because while we're in there, we could certainly take care of this.
I'm rather cool to it. I'd have to walk it, so, before I would make any decisions. We haven't had any problem with trees being clipped out there, have we? Little saplings. Several years ago, we had what we call the midnight clipper, because overnight, it just snipped trees off, you know, it'd be about, a little sapling, probably about 5, 6 feet tall. They'd clip it off like a foot close to the ground. It was all throughout the whole.
That's the first I heard that story, but.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No.
Yeah, and remember Al Sypek had set up a set of cameras out there to try to catch, whoever
Who was doing it?
It had to be a two-legged animal. But definitely, it was a nuisance.
Yeah.
So, it was a nuisance, the police wouldn't even bother with it anyway,
Yeah.
so. But boy, it unnerved Kent, he was not happy.
But Meredith did support it. She said that it was one of their wishes or discussions from many years ago. And I'm like, well, 90% of it's there. It's just that one last connectivity. And
Yeah, then some of that wall along there
there's
kind of
there's
deteriorated.
a stone wall there, so the stone wall would be treated in a similar fashion that it looks like it was done when they did the expansion area. They took the wall and just opened it up a little bit to provide access. So the same thing would be done there.
Yeah, if you bring it in, then people would tend to, think it's,
Well,
something for them to
that's where
use.
the gate would come in and to hinder that. And again, I was really looking at it, maybe if you can travel down that a little bit, Laura. It's almost directly across from, up just a little bit further, and then turn to the right. So, there's quite a bit of foliage on it at the moment, but that might be the stump no, that's not close enough to the road.
Yeah, some of the wall, because the state rebuilt Mammoth Road through
Yeah.
Londonderry back in, it was the middle 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a lot of damage with that wall, and also their drainage, they just emptied it right out into that,
Yeah.
southeastern corner of the town
I think
forest.
that's the stump right there. Yeah, that's it. So it's that and some small saplings that would come out, and then an opening would be created right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand, walking it, I understand the sensitivity of it. But again, just from a
And one
public,
of the things that's a nice, view shed along here, at least the vertical canopy of the
Yeah.
trees and everything.
Mhm.
And then in the fall, you get nice color there, you get nice color on the south side.
yeah, there was really no mature trees that needed to be dealt with except for one further in, out in the open. But again, as the common becomes more popular, the woods certainly is, the forest,